Hello, you're watching A News Morning from Baku. I'm Bakir Hasanov, and here are the top stories. The United States says it's aware of Russia's launch of an intermediate-range ballistic missile. International Atomic Energy Agency board passes Iran resolution as West pushes Tehran towards talks. Today is the official final day of the UN's largest climate conference, COP29, hosted in Baku. The United States says it's aware of Russia's launch of an intermediate-range ballistic missile at Ukraine on Thursday. Washington says it briefed Kiev and its allies to help them prepare. Russia confirms firing a hypersonic intermediate-range ballistic missile at the Ukrainian city of Dnipro. Kiev initially suggested Russia fired an intercontinental ballistic missile, a weapon designed for long-distance nuclear strikes and never before used in war. The Pentagon says Russia notified them shortly before its strike, and the White House says they are assisting Kiev.
Obviously, we are aware of Russia's launch of an intermediate-range ballistic missile against Ukraine. Ukraine has withstood countless attacks from Russia. We have seen that repeatedly over the past more than 2 years now. We briefed Ukraine and our close allies, partners in recent days to help them prepare. As the President announced earlier this year, the United States is providing Ukraine with hundreds of additional Patriot and AMRAAMS missiles to strengthen its air defense.
The United Nations says it will continue discussions with Israel to find a ceasefire deal, despite the International Criminal Court's warrant arrest for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
The United Nations say, despite the International Court's arrest warrants for Israel's Prime Minister, it will continue talks with Benjamin Netanyahu to find a ceasefire deal. Netanyahu has been accused of war crimes and crimes against humanity. He denounces the ICC's accusations. The UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric says they'll keep speaking out to find out more aid for Gaza as well as a way to stop the war.
Whether it's this conflict or any other, if we want to see a ceasefire, if we want to see increased humanitarian assistance, we have to speak to the people involved in the conflict. So we will continue to do so. It doesn't mean that we don't call out violations of humanitarian law when they occur. We don't condemn the killings of civilians. We will continue to speak out. We will continue to do whatever we can to ensure that there will be a ceasefire, to ensure that there will be humanitarian aid, to ensure that the hostages will be released, to ensure that we can get the Israelis and the Palestinians, as difficult as it may seem to imagine now, on a track back to a two-state solution.
Meanwhile, the US rejected the ICC's decision, criticizing procedural flaws and reaffirming support for Israel, highlighting divisions over the Gaza conflict.
The United Nations Atomic Agency has ordered Iran to urgently improve cooperation and enter into talks. The International Atomic Energy Agency's Board of Governors has passed a resolution requesting a comprehensive report aimed at pressurizing Iran into fresh nuclear talks. The Board of Governors, representing the 35 United Nations member states in the International Atomic Energy Agency, adopted a resolution on Thursday. Iran's ambassador to the IAEA, Mohsen Nazir-Assel, dismissed the resolution, calling it poorly supported and noting it passed with only 19 votes in favor. Previously, Tehran has responded to IAEA resolutions by increasing its nuclear activities. At least 38 people have been killed and gunmen opened fire on vehicles in northwestern Pakistan. The attack happened in the Kuram district and authorities say the death toll is likely to rise. No group claimed responsibility. President Asif Ali Zardari, in a statement, strongly condemned the attack on passenger vehicles. The COP29 climate summit in Baku has reached its critical final phase, with negotiators working to bridge between deep divides between developed and developing nations. A new draft text on climate finance offers some hope of progress, but questions remain over whether a deal can be struck in time.
As the negotiations at COP29 are due to end, parties struggle to find a middle point. Discussions on final draft divided the rich and developing countries. However, the diplomats are hopeful on reaching the conclusion, even if it takes a couple more days. COP29 has entered its critical phase in Baku, with hopes rising for what is being called the Baku breakthrough. The newly released draft text on the new collective quantified goal, or NCQG, marks progress towards consensus between developed and developing nations. However, discussions indicate that the text will require further consultations.
We need to see real rather than cosmetic solutions. Nevertheless, we remain hopeful that in these final days we can come to an outcome that delivers confidence that markets can contribute to our collective efforts.
The draft acknowledges that the window of opportunity is rapidly narrowing. European nations have been particularly vocal about the urgency to act now, warning that delays could stall progress for years. Both wealthy and poorer countries have criticized the document for failing to set a clear funding target for developing nations.
This is unacceptable. But our disappointment so far, our development partners have not responded to our request of a figure, because without a figure, the rest really is important, but we need a figure as a headline to really determine whether we are making progress, and people outside this room are expecting us to come up with that.
Importantly, the text clarifies that climate finance will be provided and mobilized from developed to all developing countries. It also emphasizes the need for climate finance to be both affordable and predictable.
We have spent a lot of time on the outcomes of the presidency, and we need to leave here successfully. In the short time remaining, we must maintain this spirit and complete the decision package. A Decision 1 reduction must come from Baku. We have decisions prepared to shape our next nationally determined contribution. Our focus here should be on implementing these decisions, ensuring progress in the mitigation work program, and remaining within the authority provided for the submitted NDC. We are pleased with the progress made so far.
The world watches as negotiators race against time to finalize the NCQG, but there is a little doubt the summit may extend beyond its scheduled conclusion.
A News continues its live coverage of COP29, the UN's largest climate conference. Today is the official final day of the event. Our colleagues Guy Sean and Orkan Amashov are on the ground to bring us the latest developments. Good morning, Guy and Orkan. What can we expect today?
Well, good morning, Bakhtiar. Good morning, everyone, from day 12 here at COP29. And as preparations are now underway for the closing ceremony, negotiations, discussions and intense redrafting continue to take place behind the scenes. Orkan Amashov, let's talk about not just what we expect to be decided here, but also when we think this event might finally reach its conclusion.
Yeah, we have reached the point at which decision has to be made. We understand that there are a couple of documents in relation to which parties have to come to a point of consensus. Today, I believe, closing ceremony will take place anyway, although we haven't heard anything definitive about it. Before 4 p.m. or between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. probably some announcements will be made in connection with adaptation measures, mitigation, some other Article 6 document as well. Probably NCQG discussions will continue till Saturday, and the decision will be made on Saturday or maybe even later. Now we're in the realm of uncertainty, of course, because officially nothing has been declared. We're merely reflecting on what is likely. And we all understand that Azerbaijan as a host is not in a position to impose any decision on parties. Its role is to bring parties together and make that consensus likely. And yesterday we heard from Secretary General Antonio Guterres. He also said that he's not a negotiator, he's not in a position to impose any decision, it's up to the parties. Really, today is day 12. Time to decisively move from linguistic originality with all that terminology based on clock is ticking, time to take decisive action, to action itself, I believe. And I think some of the announcements that we're going to hear today will be indicative of that actionable solutions that we're all talking about here today.
Thanks, Orkan. Well, Bakhtir, there we can see it's now day 12. It's time for action. We know that people have been working through the night in the rooms behind us, and do stay with us. We'll keep you updated whatever happens throughout today and tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Orkan and Mr. Guy, for latest updates. And one of the main focuses at COP29 has been on the ongoing struggles faced by small island developing states, which are extremely vulnerable to climate change, natural disasters, and economic instability. Despite representing less than 1% of the global population, small island developing states face high import and export costs, combined with over-reliance on external markets due to their limited resources. With vast ocean territories, their primary natural resources come from seas and oceans, yet they remain highly exposed to rising sea levels and other climate crises.
If you look at what is happening in our small island developing states, they're either drowning as a result of sea level rise, or they're drowning in the debt that they carry because of the climate crisis. Just look at what's happened this year in the Caribbean. Hurricane Beryl hit the Caribbean with vicious force. It was devastating to have a Category 5 hurricane at that time, because normally that doesn't happen until months later. So that shows you what a devastating impact it can have. But it wasn't just in June. As we stand here, the same region has been flooded, and that's repeated all over. So this is not a choice. The world has to decide whether they wish small island developing states still to exist. Some in Tuvalu fear that every time they leave the island, will the island still be there when they come back? So this existential threat we're talking about is not tomorrow, it is today.
The highest temperatures have become higher. Ecosystems are being degraded, coral reefs in particular. And that, of course, is affecting livelihoods, it's affecting food security, it's affecting the place we all love. Being at COP29 is very important to us. It's the one space within the UN system where we feel as small island developing states we have an equal voice. We're able to convey our challenges. We're able to argue for why things need to we need finance, and finance needs to be accessible to small islands. So we think it is very important for us to be here to make sure that our resilience is continuously built.
Gender equality was also the theme at COP's public sessions. At an event organized by UN Women, participants spoke on addressing the gendered impact of climate change on poverty and food security.
On Gender Equality Day, a high-level event entitled Gender in Transparency was held at COP29 to emphasise the importance of integrating gender considerations into climate action and transparency frameworks. Organised in collaboration with UN Women, the event highlighted the need for gender-responsive data to ensure effective climate action and accountability. Key objectives included fostering high-level commitments to gender inclusion in climate reporting. The event also aimed to reinforce the gender-responsive climate action commitments made at COP28 and encourage governments to incorporate gender considerations into their nationally determined contributions, or NDCs. Judge Dr. Jemima Njuki stressed that climate change disproportionately affects women and girls, pushing millions into poverty and worsening food security under extreme climate scenarios.
Our own projections tell us that under a worst-case climate scenario, by 2050, climate change could push more than 158 million more women and girls into poverty and exacerbate food insecurity for 236 million more women and girls.
Recognising these global challenges, countries like Azerbaijan are taking action. Bahar Maradova, chairperson of the Azerbaijani State Committee for Family, Women and Children's Affairs, highlighted the country's efforts to incorporate gender-sensitive climate adaptation into its National Action Plan for Gender Equality.
In line with our international and national commitments, the draft National Action Plan for Gender Equality has been developed. One of the main priorities of the plan is adaptation measures considering the impact of climate change on gender equality and the risks to women and children.
In response to these challenges, countries are developing concrete plans to address the intersection of gender and climate change.
A Chinese firm won the 100-megawatt Gobustan solar power plant auction. Companies from across the world demonstrated interest in the tender.
A Chinese firm has won the first renewable energy auction held in Baku. The driving force was the Azerbaijani Ministry of Energy in collaboration with the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, with the goal of constructing a 100-megawatt solar power plant. Altogether, 100 companies demonstrated interest in the auction. The Chinese company Universal International Holdings Limited won the auction by placing the lowest bid for each kilowatt-hour of electricity generated. According to the ministry, the project will save 57 million cubic metres of natural gas annually and cut carbon dioxide emissions by 124,000 tonnes. Javid Abdullayev, director of the Azerbaijani Renewable Energy Agency, highlighted significant advances in the country's renewable sector.
The agreements signed in the field of renewable energy differ from those in the hydrocarbon sector. Those agreements are based solely on Azerbaijani legislation and established formalization procedures, and this has continued with today's auction. Azerbaijan also successfully presented its National Strategic Review for Hydrocarbon document, which sparked extensive discussions. We have also introduced today's auction and signed agreements with representatives from many countries regarding energy storage systems. And ongoing implementation work is underway.
The renewable energy sector has been in the spotlight for global attention during the past few years, and Azerbaijan is leading the way in the South Caucasus and has just hosted COP29.
All households in Turkey will potentially receive electricity generated only from wind and solar power plants. This is according to a statement from the Turkish Energy Ministry. The country has increased its solar energy capacity to 19,000 megawatts. It accounts for more than 16% of the country's total installed capacity. Turkey now aims to increase its renewable energy to 120,000 megawatts by 2035. Requiring a nearly $80 billion investment. Turkey ranks among the top 11 countries globally and 5th in Europe for its alternative energy sources. Kazakhstan is increasing trade relations with Europe. President Tokayev is visiting Hungary, and the Trans-Caspian International Transport Corridor is on the agenda due to the transport and energy links between Asia and Europe. As Fariza Kalimurdzina tells us from Almaty, Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan is increasing trade relations with Europe. President Tokayev is visiting Hungary, and the Trans-Caspian International Transport Corridor is on the agenda because of the transport and energy link between Asia and Europe. As Fariza Kalimurdzina tells us from Almaty, Kazakhstan.
Hungary continues to be a reliable strategic partner of Kazakhstan in the European Union. The last time President of Kazakhstan visited Budapest was almost 20 years ago, making this trip by Kassym-Jomart Tokayev a highly significant step in solidifying the strategic ties between the two countries. During his visit, President Tokayev held talks with Hungary's leadership discussing key areas of mutual cooperation, including trade, economic partnerships, energy, oil and gas, transport and education. A major topic of the discussions was the development of one of the most crucial strategic trade route, the Trans-Caspian International Transport Corridor. This vital transport route connects Asia and Europe, and both countries are committed to expanding its potential. As a result of these talks, an agreement was signed between Kazakhstan's national railway carrier and the Xi'an Free Trade Port. This deal aims to strengthen trade and transport ties and unlock new opportunities for infrastructure development, logistics, and international trade. As President Tokayev noted during the visit, 85% of overland transit traffic between Asia and Europe passes through Kazakhstan. In the near future, it's expected that the volume of cargo deliveries along this road will reach 10 million tons. In addition to transport and infrastructure, trade relations between Kazakhstan and Hungary are also growing steadily. Last year, mutual trade between the two countries increased by 9%, and their goal is to bring the trade turnover to $1 billion in the near future. Kazakhstan is ready to supply 95 types of goods to Hungary with a total value of $700 million. These goods include energy products, petrochemicals, mechanical engineering, agriculture, and construction materials. Hungarian companies are also showing growing interest in investment opportunities in Kazakhstan, especially in sectors such as energy, infrastructure, and manufacturing. This visit marks a new chapter in the growing partnership between Kazakhstan and Hungary, with increasing opportunities for economic cooperation and regional development. As both countries look to strengthen their ties, we can expect even more progress in the coming years. Fariza Kalimurzina, Almaty, A-News.
Well, that's all we have for this hour. Thank you for watching, and also we wish you a good day ahead.